Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm really pleased to sort of say that we've got a really interesting panel discussion this morning. It's something dear to our hearts because within CyberFirst and NCSC, we've been working really closely with Northern Ireland, and you'll hear some great things that are being started this morning. But this morning is all about Northern Ireland's cybersecurity education ecosystem and how you can all contribute to that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Andrew Elliott, who is the Deputy Director within DCIT, and he will now start and introduce the panel for this discussion. We will also have Slido running, so feel free to sort of pop any questions into Slido, and if there is time, we'll sort of use those as part of the panel discussion. So thank you. Andrew.
Thanks, Sarah, and welcome everybody. And yes, I'm from DCIT, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, not to be confused with CCIT or indeed ECIT, which are all better known in this part of the United Kingdom. It's really exciting doing an ecosystem panel here in Belfast. We often get asked where are the real sort of centres of activity, where it all works best in the UK, and Belfast is always on that list of places where we like to describe and tell people about where there is a magic that makes things happen. And it's just exciting, isn't it, having the first Cyber UK that's actually located in one of those places. I think probably everyone is aware what a fantastic ecosystem already exists here. We've got 2,700 people in the workforce in cybersecurity in Northern Ireland, a target to get to 5,000 by 2025? 2030. We can go faster. Feeding that sort of pathway into the workforce, some really exciting and impressive programs. Queen's University, obviously, being a key component of that with CCIT, also Ulster. We have the schools, the 15 CyberFirst schools here, which we're going to go to 40 shortly. We have the huge amounts of industry participation in this space, and I'm sure Keith will be telling you about what Allstate get up to. And of course, there's the Assured Skills Academy, which is something that in London we're looking at very closely with envious eyes. So we're going to learn a bit about this today. Let me ask the panel firstly to introduce themselves. So starting on my left with Graham.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Graham Wilkinson. I'm the Director of Skills in the Department for the Economy, largely responsible for overseeing the implementation of our new skills strategy. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk a little bit about that, but as well as a number of short-term skills interventions that help young people and career changers into the new and exciting roles such as cybersecurity, but we'll talk about that in a moment.
Good morning, everyone. My voice holds. I'm Judith Miller, and I work in industry engagement in CCIT, which, as Andrew mentioned already, is the Cybersecurity Research Centre of Queen's University Belfast, based here in the city.
I'm Keith Lippard. I'm the Deputy CISO for Allstate globally, and despite the accent, I'm based here. This is my home, and hope it always will be.
I'll apologise for my accent instantly as well. I've lived in Northern Ireland for 25 years, and I run a cybersecurity company here, a small cybersecurity company, doing some really interesting work with all the interesting people around. With my other hat, I'm also chair of the NI Cybersecurity Cluster. So we've got a stand down in the main hall there, so you can come and see us and chat about all things cybersecurity related, all things Northern Ireland, so I'm also a CyberFirst ambassador as part of that programme.
And what is your name?
Oh, sorry. And my name is Simon Whittaker.
But you probably all knew that anyway, and it's slightly terrifying being on the same panel as Simon, because I don't know if you went to the Allstate event yesterday morning, which he ably chaired with a panache that I think I could never really aspire to exceed. But anyway, so Graham, you were talking about the strategy that you're working on here. We have had cyber strategies coming out of our eyeballs for the last few years, including on skills in the UK, and we see lots of difficult challenges there, coordinating all the different efforts of all the different parties who want to contribute in this space. How do we make this a sort of sustainable change and intervention that maybe will carry on going beyond the sort of government's current generous funding in this space? How do we open up more entry-level roles? So, what do you see? What do you see as the as the challenges linked to the skills strategy, both here in Northern Ireland and the wider UK, when looking at the ever-growing skills gap?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Certainly from our perspective in government, the race for skills and talent has never been more fierce. Certainly the impact of COVID has been very challenging in terms of the number of people coming through the labour market. So that's something that we're very much focused on, trying to look at what can we do to actually address the skills gap that we have to help our economy continue to grow here in Northern Ireland. I think there's a couple of things that we're really focused on in our skills strategy. First is careers, is something that we're very passionate about. During our consultation exercise, the importance of careers come up time and time and time again. Certainly whenever I was coming through our education system, it was law, it was accountancy, it was medicine. Those were the typical careers that were in vogue. I think our challenge is actually being able to describe to young people in particular coming through our education system, what are the careers of the future? I talk to my kids about cyber. They say, Dad, you know nothing about cyber. Don't even try to encourage us to go into all these different things. So I think that's really important for industry to be able to champion these types of careers. What are they? What are they all about? And I've listened to Keith in the past. He's excellent at actually describing the roles, and that's something that we need to redouble our efforts to ensure that young people coming through our education system are very clear about the exciting opportunities there are in terms of cyber. Also pathways. I think we need to look at alternative pathways, particularly for those who are looking for a change of career, looking how we can help those people who want to get into cyber, who maybe haven't gone the traditional route. And that's something that you mentioned earlier on, Andrew, around our Assured Skills Academies has been hugely popular. So that's an 18-week programme, an intensive 18-week programme where individuals have the opportunity then to get an interview and get into a job. Those have been hugely successful. So around 85% of those people that we've put through those academies have actually got into a job. The other thing that we have done during COVID is put on more free provision through our Skill Up programme. So that's free for individuals, and they can do that learning online at a time that's suitable for them. So again, we're very conscious of career changers and people who want to do something different. It's very difficult to give up a job to go through a full-time course and then take the risk that brings. So from a government perspective, we're very much looking at online learning, part-time courses, so it's more accessible for those who are looking to get into a different career and to have that opportunity. We're also looking at the apprenticeship programme. How can we utilise our higher level apprenticeship programme to help people to get into the types of careers that are certainly available in cyber? And the other thing that I would say is around curriculum. Curriculum is really important. There's no doubt, particularly in areas like cyber, where it changes so quickly, it changes so rapidly. How do we keep pace with that, and how do we ensure that we're getting the learning coming from the very innovative companies that we have here in Northern Ireland, and bedding that into our curriculum in our education system so that individuals have the skills that they need for a fast-moving economy. A couple of final things that I would say, Andrew, is investment. Investment in skills is absolutely key. Whenever we did our research, we found that there was a reduction in investment of around 20 to 25% by the public sector over the last 10 years, but similarly, a similar disinvestment by the private sector. So that would be very much my call, is for people to consider what they're investing in, to make sure that they're investing in your people, because ultimately that's how you improve your productivity going forward. And the last thing for me is, you know, and probably this is the most important thing in relation to skills, is actually the relationships between business, government and our education providers. We are very much focused on our new Skills Council. We're going through a recruitment process currently, but we want to build those relationships to make sure that we're doing the right thing and making sure that, as I say, the curriculum is right, our careers is right, but it's been led by business. It's not easy for civil servants to come up with curriculum and careers, but it's that relationship with the business community is absolutely key to the success of the delivery of our skills strategy.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, I agree with that. Business leadership. I think the kind of things you describe is very comforting. It sounds like we're operating from the same playbook on how to make policy, so we're in good company. Judith, in addition to the sort of the business community, The big part of the ecosystem, the educators, the universities. What's going on at Queen's University to support the skills development in cybersecurity and to build the cyber education ecosystem here in Belfast?
Great, okay. So across the university there's a range of initiatives going on, and some of you hopefully in the room are aware of the ACE programme, and Queen's is one of we had that accreditation and that was renewed again, which is fantastic. So we're a cybersecurity centre of excellence for education and also for research, but today we'll focus on education. So what that has meant for us actually is ensuring that we're increasingly embedding cybersecurity across all of the electronic engineering and computer science software development pathways, so that all students coming through that have a cybersecurity awareness. So that's been really important. But then going broader, and this was one of the projects that's funded through the CSE scheme from NCSC, where we're actually embedding this cybersecurity awareness across all our undergraduate degree pathways. So whether you come through law, medicine, accountancy, the traditional ones, those are really important that you actually have, even you go in, you're going to be a doctor, you need to understand where the cybersecurity risks are and having that awareness. So with that funding, we've developed a really immersive technology platform to give people that understanding. They'll not get the technology, but somebody to bring that awareness. So that's been a really key thing, and we're really excited about rolling that out. It's had fantastic feedback already with a pilot group. And actually, Simon, and you can probably hint on this later, but Simon has also done some work with our MBA cohort as well, so that our students coming through who may be potential board members of the future, that they also have a cyber awareness, because we know that that's one challenge we hear about a lot, is that you wouldn't join a board and be like, oh, I don't really understand the finance bit, but somehow it's okay to somehow have that attitude around cyber, and that's not okay. So really working at all those various levels. One thing I mentioned as well that's consistent across both universities is that we're really fortunate to have a compulsory placement year in year 3. So that's an industry placement year. So that, from Queen's University alone, that sees about 400 students spend a year with industry, including Allstate, including Rapid7, the SME members as well, into finance, Sensata, who are looking at connected vehicles, cybersecurity. So right across that, so by the time they finish and they graduate at the final year, quite often, like at Rapid7, I think they take back around 70% of students into their graduate pipeline. So that is really effective, and you have this student cohort coming through with industry awareness and actually an awareness of what a role in cyber is. Obviously, that's technology-wide, and it's right across the sector. But a number of those companies, Rapid7 is a cybersecurity vendor company, but Allstate has a huge cybersecurity team. So whether they go into finance or healthcare, various sectors, they can get that cybersecurity awareness. So I think it's a real strength to the region. I don't know how wide that is across the UK, but it's certainly something across both universities that's been very effective over many years now.
We should have all the other universities in the land in here listening to you, Judith. I mean, it's really exciting as well that you've embedded this into every undergraduate course. We often, when we're asked about cyber skills, sort of start the conversation by saying, well, what the hell do you mean by cyber skills? And they kind of, it breaks into sort of the 3 areas, those sort of cyber hygiene that every citizen kind of needs to have. Then the kind of second pot I would think of as the sort of cyber strategic awareness that the lawyers, the accountants, C-suite people need to have, and then the skills for the workforce. And it's that middle bucket that we never seem to have actually dealt with. So what you're doing there seems to fit. Are you seeing some kind of impact from what you've done in that space already? Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess it's important to say as well that on the research side, we're also, like Queen's is also a customer of this, as well as supplying talent to industry. We're trying to attract PhD students longer term as well, so we also need the talent pipeline to come through, and that's really key as we're looking at areas like hardware security, which is becoming more important as we carry so many IoT devices in our homes, on our person, but also at the national level, like our defence system. We're all very aware of telecoms recently, so you want to know exactly where that hardware is coming from, that you can trust it. And that's only one area, obviously, AI, there's so many areas that the trustworthy aspect is increasingly important.
So moving on to diversity. Now, we all know why we need a diverse workforce in cybersecurity. There are national security reasons for why that's a priority and essential. I have to say, we had this new minister who started recently, and we have been trying to drill that message into him. And we've been telling him that 22% of the cyber workforce are female. We then take him to the CyberFirst awards dinner in Belfast. All of the winning awarded people come onto the stage. They were all women. We then went the following morning to your office, Keith, and we had a panel which the technical person on the panel was a very impressive local woman as well. So I'm not entirely sure that we've actually managed to convince him that there is actually a problem in this space. But anyway, what challenges does the ecosystem face when trying to drive forward diversity and social mobility in the cybersecurity skills sector?
Well, there is indeed a problem, and the global data shows that I think the female IT graduation rate peaked in 1989 at 28%. And I don't know about you, but I don't have less technology in my life than I did in 1989. And it's fallen every year since. And I think there are a number of things that are already said in the panel that are important. Giving context to what a role in cybersecurity would look like is incredibly important. I have never in my career had a job that I knew existed when I went to school. So that's a role that industry can and should play to make sure that that context to what a role in cybersecurity would look like, the diversity of the types of roles, and the social responsibility that comes with that. If you have a student who's thinking about being a doctor, a nurse, or a lawyer, or planting trees, or giving back to society, we don't necessarily in education highlight the social responsibility that comes along with working in cybersecurity as a career path or as part of the message. So those are a couple of places where I think we lose diverse candidates. I think we could also start a little earlier. Certainly we could begin teaching cybersecurity and those skills before 12 years old, maybe as young as 8, using more of an Israel-type model in starting earlier. Some of the A-level, we see some dropout with mathematics, with female candidates going towards mathematics rather than IT. When you put this question into ChatGPT, it gives you 5 answers. The first 2 I don't believe, very much like you. Lack of role models. There are great female role models out there, so I don't really think that's so valid anymore. Stereotypes, that it's a male-dominated career, and certainly again, when you look at the panels, when you look at the awards we've been handling out, I think those are diminishing. But industry plays a role in this in making sure that kids, diverse candidates understand, and neurodiversity, understand what a role might look like.
That's sounds optimistic, but the thing which we haven't talked a bit about was kind of what Graham was referring to about I think the pathways to be a sort of lawyer and a doctor are very clear, and I think if you're a young person in school, you need to be able to see those. And I know I've often had teachers tell me that actually girls are perhaps slightly more strategic about what they want to do next, and that's kind of the critical problem. The one thing we haven't talked about is the UK Cybersecurity Council, which is going to be trying to sort of map out this space and perhaps give cybersecurity a bit more sort of professional kudos. We've given it a royal charter and all the bells and whistles that you expect to see for an equivalent body. Do you think that'll help, Keith, try to tackle that gender problem?
It's one of those things very much like you described. The skill gap is so wide, I think we can't count on one solution.
Yeah.
I think, and very much like you described with the reskill and upskill programs, that context that people have coming from other careers is very valuable in cybersecurity. Understanding the law, like one of our speakers yesterday, they make a great cybersecurity professional because they understand the interplay of both law and technology. So I feel, I'm not attacked by one type of person. So certainly having diverse gender, neurodiversity, as well as backgrounds makes a more protected environment. So I'm optimistic by that framework. Certainly it'll help. but I don't think it's probably one solution, very much like was described. The gap is so wide, we need to work with teachers, we need to work with industry, we need to work with academics, and certainly industry plays a role in that as well. I'm not worried so much about teaching technology as much as techniques. The technology is going to change. People who think about puzzles and think about how would I break this, and the reverse engineering is a skill that's independent of the technology, which is going to change.
Great.
Yeah,
sure.
because I think it's not only about, if you didn't choose this subject at 16 or 18, that's it. And I think your company has excellent examples of attracting people at different points and from very different backgrounds as well, where technology is like enabling a social mobility that we don't always see in other sectors.
Oh yeah, I studied art history with a specialty in religious signs and symbols.
I went to drama school.
Yeah.
No,
But that shows.
And we're both on this panel today. With different backgrounds. It matters having these people in our industries. It's important.
Yeah. It always worries me when we get into that kind of discussion, because I feel like there's always the sort of person who's got the really interesting background story as to how they got into cybersecurity. Are they the norm or are they the outlier?
Well, I think to be honest, so in my firm, we're a firm of 13 people, and we have one chap who was a firefighter for 22 years, and he went and did the Caps Lock program. If anyone's ever come across that, he went and did Caps Lock, and then came to work for me. And he's brilliant. He's absolutely fantastic. Great, very process driven. Loves doing what he does, and he's got those. I started off doing something very different and managed to. I won't say blag a job, but managed to get into this industry in whatever way. There are people coming at this from so many different ways. I did an interview last year with 2 years ago with a group of people who'd been through one of the Assured Skills Academies that was discussed there. One of them used to be in the cultural sector and decided it wasn't for them anymore. One of them used to be a plumber. Again, nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they found something they do, and I've still connected with them on LinkedIn, and you see the things they're getting up to. I mean, it's phenomenal. Joining the cyber workforce at 35 or whatever it is, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I started off my career as a software engineer, and now I'm a government pen pusher. So just for the record, it can go both ways. So let's talk about industry collaboration. I mean, I was very impressed when I was being told about the Assured Skills Academies and how the conversion rate into employment on them is. Graham, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the figures, but maybe I should let you say it.
No, we've been really delighted with the outcomes that we've got from our Assured Skills Academies. And it's very much to describe it, as I said earlier, it's an 18-week program. But the secret to that is actually it's working with the companies in the various sectors to design the curriculum to make sure that it meets the needs of the companies. They're really challenging and they're really difficult to do. So, you've done a course. It's not something that you don't feel as if you've got something out. So we really teach and educate the individuals in the skills that they will need, so they're prepared for a job. So it varies, Andrew, between 85 and 90% of those who participate in Assured Skills will get a job.
That's incredible.
I don't know, because we've shared the model widely across Europe, but it just seems to work here. And I think I heard you previously, Simon, talking about the size that we have here. We just seem to have a unique scale that seems to work really well, and the relationship that we have with the colleges, the universities, the employers, and it just seems to work. I also think that we do have a rich talent pool of individuals here. Whether that's a success of our education system or not, I'm not entirely sure. But just whenever you get that blend of talented individuals, business and education working in partnership with government, it just seems to work really well. So it's something that we're promoting and we're encouraging companies to get on board, because the secret is actually getting the companies to engage in it. But we're also looking to develop the model to have part-time academies, having them online, so they're much more accessible going forward.
Well, if we have any of the delivery partners for any of the UK government's reskilling programs, they need to come and speak to Graham afterwards to try and get a bit of that secret sauce.
Absolutely.
But Simon, this is an example of some good industry collaboration to tackle the skills problem. But what more do you think industry can be doing?
Well, I think there are some fantastic examples, and we spoke before about the teaching the careers teachers almost. What does cybersecurity actually mean? Nobody actually knows. In my experience, we run a cybersecurity cluster. We have everybody from penetration testing teams to people developing the coolest software for authentication and authorization, through to people making hardware. It means so many different things to so many different people. And so sometimes I think we don't know what cybersecurity actually means. That's a thing. But what we can do is we can write down what we know and share that with careers teachers and tell them how to sell, how to understand this. And that's something I know Victoria's in the audience here from Keith's team. We've created she and a group of people from the groups have created a brochure for careers teachers to say, this is what we do. These are some of the jobs that you might be able to do. They may not exist in 10 years, but that's what we do now. Video interviews, telling people, giving people ideas about what to do. Because otherwise you're just going to find that there's going to be people, just heading into the more traditional professions. So I think that's a fascinating thing, and that's industry support. That's Keith and his team, and Victoria and Sean and all these people who are actually doing it. I think that something from an industry support perspective we need to go out and speak to people. So I'm a CyberFirst ambassador, like many other people I can see in front of me. We go out and speak at schools, tell these young people what we're up to. What are we doing? What does my job actually mean? So you're teaching the careers teachers, you're teaching the kids, you're going out and being part of these programs, volunteering. I think that another thing that people can do is to take a risk. So in our small company, as I say, we've got somebody from the apprenticeship program. We've got somebody who's retrained from the Caps Lock program. We have people from different backgrounds, and you've got to take that risk. You've got to be able to say, I'm going to do this, and I'm actually going to give it a try. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's really important to engage with the world of further education and higher education as well. So go and speak to your further education colleges and see what they're up to. See what you can do to support them. My business partner is very patient with me when I do volunteering, going out and speaking to people, and not everybody's going to be in a similar position, but I think it's really important to be going out and speaking to people about what's going on, and talk to the colleges and find out what you can do. I was lucky enough to go to Pinsent Masons yesterday. The lawyers over the road there for lunch, and one of the things that a lady called Anna told me about in there yesterday was about a workplace visibility program they do. So they bring young people in of, I think it's 15 or 16. They bring them into the office and they say, this is what I do all day. This is what a lawyer does. Great idea. Let's show people what we're up to. There will be some secret squirrel stuff in some people's professions that you can't show them what you do, but my company, that's fine. We'll bring them in, we'll show them what we do, and see if any of it sticks.
That's great. Yeah, there's lots of goodwill in this sector, isn't there? I mean, the incredible thing about cybersecurity is once you've converted somebody into it, they become a compassionate advocate for the rest of it, and I think that's why there are so many people contributing and so many companies contributing. I mean, Keith Allstate's going into all sorts of schools around the country, really impressive. But how do you sort of coordinate to make sure that you're not stepping on the toes of the company down the road that's trying to deliver the same kind of message?
Well, we try not to make it competitive. We're part of an ecosystem, and certainly, like if you're doing incident management work at Rapid7 and or another company, and you're cutting your teeth right out of university, I'd love to pick you up later. And certainly I have people who have maybe maxed out at all they can do at Allstate, and I'll be talking to the CISO of Kainos, Paul, and seeing if we can share talent. There's such a skill gap that we have to work together as employers, as industry, to do the right thing for people. So it's not competitive, and I very much, like I said before, that diversity of experience when you come from another company, another environment, another industry, will only benefit me. You'll find vulnerabilities that we couldn't. So we work together.
I think Keith's answer there is such a great reflection. Paul from Kainos, fantastic chap, he used to work with you.
Yeah.
You know, he used to work for Keith, and now he's gone off to Kainos to go and do some brilliant stuff over there. But there's that collaboration. People know one another. In Northern Ireland, you know, it's a very small group of people, and we all try to get on. We all try to do stuff. We all try to meet for coffee and go for, you know, just talk. And that is really important. That, you know, and it's reflected in how Keith and, you know, Allstate and Kainos can do things, and you know, it's magical.
And as I discovered in the cathedral quarter last night, they all seem to have children who play sports together as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's a small world. Patrick, shall we see whether we've got anything on Slido?
We have some questions.
Oh, they're right behind me, are we?
On the board for you. There's one at the top. Might be interesting. The program describes very technology focused, not so much about people and process. Is this contributing to the lack of diversity?
So the program's described as very technologically focused. Does that contribute to the lack of diversity? Judith?
Okay.
You.
Trying to clarify the question. So people in process.
To me, that goes back to one of the stereotypes. One of the stereotypes that we're fighting is that you've got to write code.
That's true.
And as early as we can dispel that myth, the better. So we have teams of people here that do risk assessments. That's a great sort of follow the sun activity. When the Americans wake up about 1 o'clock our time, they've got new content waiting for them. And there's no coding involved, and a really valuable piece of what we do. So I think that's a key thing we're trying to dispel, is that it's not technology focused necessarily. It's understanding threats, it's understanding risks, being able to measure that well, all the way down to, you know, how to communicate and teach staff about cybersecurity. You know, very much like we were saying, cybersecurity is everything. So if you're a product developer, we want you to think about the threat vectors. And again, that's sort of not a technology type of skill. It's technical, but you don't have to write code.
Yeah.
How do you attract candidates onto your courses?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of something actually that Simon and I have worked together in the cluster as well. So to try and give that human face, we'd recently done a series of videos, and Victoria participated in that as well, and Keith, and like showing different roles in cyber. So we had, as a company here, Salt Communications. They're out in the exhibition area if you see them. And Nicole talked about her role in cyber education. She's not a technology person. Yes, she works with technology people, but there's room for her too from a marketing and business background. So just getting those stories that people can, okay, that might not be me, but that is. And I even think of being at school myself, and you know, the careers teachers, I said at one stage, oh, I might be interested in IT, and the careers teacher said, I don't want to think of you sitting at a computer all day. I sit at a computer all day, but I'm not a coder because that's our life, you know, it's email and things. That's a long time ago now, but I think we're, you know, constantly trying to put the real, you know, stories, and even when it comes to, you know, placement opportunities, that like industry placements, that it's not only, you know, who your uncle is, or, you know, that actually open that broader. So that's brilliant what Penn St Masons are doing, that you structure that in a way that's accessible to people from all backgrounds as well.
There's a question up here about teachers. I often get told that we're not sufficiently strategic enough, and we focus too much on the pupils. And actually, if we focused on the teachers, for every teacher you can bring on board, they can go and do the job for you for many more. Do you think we do enough of that here in Northern Ireland?
I'll maybe just say a little bit about that, Andrew. I mean, one of the key priorities in our skills strategy is to build a digital spine in our education system. So absolutely, looking at our education system, looking at our teachers and providing them with the skills that they need. So we're working very closely with the Department of Education. We're working with St Mary's and Stranmillis, so that's our teacher training colleges here in Northern Ireland, to make sure that they do have the skills. And some of the things that we are working is with industry to see how they can interface to actually bring the skills into those teacher training colleges. And I know the various companies are very keen to do that, so that will be one of the initial things that we want to do. And you talked earlier on, one of the things that we're very pleased about is the Memorandum of Understanding that we recently signed for CyberFirst. So we're looking to expand our CyberFirst programme. Currently have 11 schools, we're looking to move to 40. Over the next couple of years, so we're very excited about that. Belfast Met are helping us to roll that out, so that's something that is going to help a little bit, but certainly they'll be learning for that. We'd really love to have that in every school right across Northern Ireland.
And If I may, I've been part of that CyberFirst Schools program. I've been one of the assessors with Patrick over there. We've been doing a lot of work to look at what they're doing. And if you look at the criteria required, that teacher education and teacher participation is really important. That's an important criteria. It's that there have to be some extracurricular activity, some out of school activities. There have to be some an hour and a half of various and you have to also promise that you will do at the various key stages. You have to do a certain amount of computer science based activities. It's written down there, and that's the commitment. That and teachers have it really tough when it comes to this stuff, because a lot of my family are teachers, and they left school, went to St Mary's or Stranmillis, and then went back into a school environment. They haven't had this experience of seeing what cybersecurity actually is, and that comes back again to what we were already talking about, which is to say, let's go in and support these teachers. Let's go in and talk to them. Let's bring people like Michelle who was on the panel yesterday into schools. Let's bring people like Keith in, who you regularly speak at these events to encourage people along, and then the teachers will be inspired as well. I actually spoke to a couple of teachers yesterday at the schools event yesterday, and firstly one of them asked me for a job, but then there were ones who were really enthused by it. They're genuinely enthused by doing the CTF next door. It was cool. It was really, really good.
Don't take this as an or, but see it as an and. Absolutely, teachers are important, but administrators are as well. Principals, what gets documented gets done, and teachers will do what the administrator wants to do and will measure. So I think principals and getting higher in the infrastructure of education is important too, making sure that they understand it at the principal level so that the teachers follow on.
Absolutely, I strongly agree with that. They set the culture of the school. They set the expectation of the students. They drive the parents' ambitions. They're really critical to doing this.
And again, that's actually question 1 on the CyberFirst application form, is a signed letter from the principal saying, we believe in this, this is what we're going to do, and you have to set it out. That is, the CyberFirst scheme is really striving to do that. They need it from the top level to get these people involved.
Great. Well, we're nearly out of time, so it's one last question, which is our call to action question. So in your opinion, what would be the most important area to focus on when it comes to developing cyber education ecosystems, and how can our audience here help? So where should we start, Graham?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. Maybe one thing. I think for me, it's that sort of industry engagement to be able to describe the types of jobs that there are. I go back to my initial comment when my kids said, "Dad, what is cyber? You know nothing about it." We're kind of stumped. So I really struggle with that. So it's that sort of industry engagement and to be able to describe the jobs. And if I was allowed a second one, Andrew, it would be around curriculum. How can industry help us to develop curriculum to help us develop that digital spine in our education system so we're teaching the right things in our schools? So those kind of, if I was allowed to, those would be the two things.
I'm jealous that you're able to talk about curriculum. It's a dirty word on the other side of the Irish Sea. Judith.
Okay, I think just coming from the university, but which is traditionally very much about you between 18 and 22 or 23, and then get your masters and whatever. But I think increasingly recognising that education is not only that window, and that especially if we're all going to be working until we're 67 or 77 or whatever it's going to be, that we are going to have more different careers through our lives. And as we develop in our career journeys, the technology develops. So I think that about how we keep upskilling and retaining, so people don't all move to government when they're cybersecurity experts. But also then, today we're talking about cybersecurity. 10, 15 years ago it was information security. What's the term going to be in 10, 15 years? So keeping that eye to the future about, well, where are the skills and the careers going? That's the language we need to talk about going forward as well to stay relevant.
Keith.
When we did our first CyberFirst girls competition, we did a graduation. Parents came in. I said, how many parents work in IT? And about 60% of the hands went up. Kids are still hearing about cybersecurity in the context of it at home. So I think all of us who are in this industry owe it to talk to somebody, a young person, a classroom, et cetera, and try to give that context. A lot of it still comes from a friend, a relative, a parent who works in IT, where they can see and understand that context. And again, that's where we lose diversity in many cases, where it doesn't come up through the grades. So I think making sure that if you're in the industry, you talk to somebody and give them that context.
So, absolutely, and for me, it all comes down to communication. Again, it's talking to people, and I think one of the things that we could all do is to get together and talk about this stuff more regularly. So in Northern Ireland, we have a few different groups, and we're all trying to work together to make it easier for schools and for make the skills issue kind of not disappear but become smaller. So the Software Alliance has recently been set up in Northern Ireland with a view to helping people to get into the software development industry. But NI-CYBER, we're going to work with them to see what happens. We're going to look at the skills with the skills committee that Victoria chairs from Allstate, getting together and communicating again with them, and all trying to have this unified approach. We won't always get it right, but if you work for a big company, don't just set up a firm. Don't just set up a program to go into schools and do something. Speak to the other big companies around. Keith said it's not a competition. These are all people that we will be working with or for, or in some shape or form in the next few years. So let's try and do that and collaborate and chat to one another about these things.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that's pretty much we're out of time, but I think we've learned some more about the magic that operates here in Belfast, and the inspirational way you go about building that collaboration and growing this area, and an area where you've really sort of stated ambition with a target. We don't have a target. We could do with one. Before I thank the panel, can I particularly thank Sarah, who organised today and gave me all of my briefing, and also Patrick, who's looked after the Slido, which I failed to really answer all the questions on. And can I thank most of all the panel for coming along and giving their wisdom to us all here today, as well as all of you for joining us. Thank you very much, everybody.